Hi, everybody. So I want you to meet Whit, and I think we've done at least one video together before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hello, hello.
So I want to welcome her, and I want to also say that we're doing a movie review. So, and this was suggested by Whit, and I was surprised.
It's not what
So,
people are gonna think I would suggest.
yeah. Um, Very cheesy movie, but lots and lots of disclosure in there. So tell us about this movie, Whit.
Yes, it's called Somewhere in Time. Those of you who are watching may or may not be familiar with it. There we go.
There it is.
There it is. And it explores time travel and it explores following your intuition and explores kind of creating your own reality and so many different things. So, I mean, the cheesiness of it is very real.
It
There's
is.
definitely a romantic like theme through it that is pretty heavy-handed, but yeah, it's good. I was actually suggested to watch this movie maybe 2 or 3 years ago by someone I was working with, like in a mentorship kind of way. She was mentoring me and she just was like, watch this movie. She didn't tell me why. She just was like, watch it. And I was like, okay. And I watched it and I was just like, why did she suggest this? Like, I don't really understand why. I wasn't at that place in my understanding and my remembering to really connect the dots.
Yeah.
So I was just like, cool, thanks, Shirley. I don't really understand why. And now I get it. Now I get it. I connected the
Yeah.
dots. But it's funny how that like comes full circle, like when we were talking about different movies to watch and like review and stuff. This one just popped into my head. I was like, this one.
Yeah. Well, and it's so good. Like so many people have seen it, I think, because it is an older movie, but like you can still buy it on DVD. You can
Yeah.
still watch it on Amazon, like as
Yep.
a download. So it's still prevalent. Christopher Reeve was Superman, and
Mm.
Jane Seymour was like, she was like the ultimate romance queen of all these
Yeah.
different shows.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of amazing. And the reality that he had to create was pretty amazing so that he could actually time travel back to her.
Yeah. It would. So for those of you who haven't seen it, there's an element kind of at the beginning where he's not really aware of that.
Mhm.
And she kind of comes back to him in her older state and sparks him, which I think, in our day-to-day lives, we're probably being sparked by a bunch of different people. We're not fully aware of it. But in that moment, he's just like, you could just tell, like the way he acted that role, it was like meant to be like a moment that like sparks this whole journey for him.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was just super interesting to kind of like think about that. I'm like, oh, how am I being sparked in my day to day by people all the time? I mean, I know, honey, you're sparking me all the time, and like a bunch of other people are as well. But in this particular movie, that was like a very obvious, like the audience should pick up on this.
Yeah, she definitely sparked him, and he was very confused,
Yeah.
like what the purpose was. And it took him a long time. I mean, 8 years feels like a long time to
Yeah.
finally be ready to go and figure it out. And he didn't even really know what he was doing when he went.
No.
So he just followed his intuition.
Yeah, yeah. There's this one in particular scene that like I actually paused it and I wrote some notes. I have like a bunch of notes written here, but where he's like about to like pass by the hotel, which is like a big theme in this movie. The hotel is like the setting.
Yeah.
And he's about to pass by and he does. And then he like backs his car up and then he's like, and then you see him like go towards the hotel. I was like, again, so many times in your life, if you have that like gut feeling or that intuition of like, I should go over here right now, or like, I should talk to this person, like, that's kind of how it happens for a lot of people. And sometimes it's really subtle, and sometimes it's almost feels like a slap in the face. Like
Yeah, if you ignore it too many times, it will come in like a freight train.
hmm
So that's when you get slapped, basically.
yeah.
Yeah, there's a rule with like, so your soul is trying to guide you, right? And first you get a feather, then you get hit on the head with an apple, and then you get ran over by a truck. So that's basically how it works with the soul. The soul is finally like, just like figure it out, you know?
Like,
Um,
hello.
yeah. So we're moving past that though, I think right now, like the vessel, the body, and all of the body's consciousness, they're really stepping into play, and they're pushy right now. The body
hmm
consciousness is really pushy and learning how to be sovereign and
hmm
not willing to be pushed around anymore. So that's been really amazing and confusing because, you know, like with me, it's shown up with food,
Yeah.
you know, oh, I don't like eggs. I'm going to give you a horrible sinus headache now. Or there was one granola, I ate granola and
Mm.
then woke up and felt so horrible the next day. And in the middle of like, why am I eating granola? And my body's like, I want it, I want it, I want it. And I then was like, what are you doing the next morning? Why did we eat granola for dinner? And my body's like, just to test. So, you know, it's a weird environment that we're in right now. We're learning
Yeah.
all this new stuff.
It's really funny. Mine also, I was getting a lot of signals for a while to like not eat meat. And so I didn't. And then I came to the realization with the help from some other people as well, being like, no, you need to eat more protein. Your body really needs it right now. There's a lot going on that just you're not getting the protein that your body needs. And so then I went back to it again, and everything felt so much better. And I was like, well, what was that? And I was like, well, eventually we'll get to that point, but you're not quite ready yet. And I'm like, cool. Cool.
Yeah. Yeah, we're
So
not quite ready body wise. And a lot of it is the mind. The
yeah,
mind isn't ready. And also the way that we have structured everything isn't quite, I'd say, up to par enough. Like we're not clean enough.
yeah,
The heavy metals aren't all gone. The parasites aren't completely gone. Like we're not quite ready to just switch to fruit, which
right.
I
Yep.
do think we're mainly going to be fruit eaters in the future, but
My body's obsessed with fruit.
me too.
So I do that all the time. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll eat like a whole thing of raspberries in one sitting, and I'm just like, well, I guess I don't have any more of those anymore. They're all gone. You know,
Yep.
my body's like, yeah, so awesome.
I know.
So
I
it's
know.
just kind of funny right now.
But it's good. I think it's really good to like the balance between like tuning into what your body is saying and then also what your soul, and like finding that balance. Cause I did find for a while was really hyper focused on like soul and my higher
Yeah,
self, and like I wasn't fully ignoring my vessel in my body, but I was more than I think I probably should have been. And now I'm striking this balance of like, okay, I'm like advocating on behalf of my vessel in my body now. Like if my soul is like slamming back into my body, I'm like, no, we're
no,
not doing that. No. Like
yeah,
if we can traverse the universe and the multiverse, we can gently go back into the body gently. So yeah, it's finding that balance, I think, intuitively between both, and making sure that that partnership is really a partnership.
yeah, because it hasn't been. The soul has definitely been in charge. And it's changing now. So it is going to be a real partnership because the body is activated now. So
Mhm.
now you have your DNA is connected, or it's close to being all connected. And your
Mhm.
crystalline body is here, even if we're not acknowledging it. So there's all this stuff going on, but
Yeah.
it's very cool. And I think it will be slightly imbalanced for a little while where the body is being more bossy, and then it will balance again.
Yeah. I feel like, it went through plenty of time of just not being heard. So
Yeah.
it's gotta speak up for a bit. I don't blame it.
No, I don't either. And the purpose of what we're doing is to ascend the human body, because
Mhm.
that will ascend everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's pretty cool. Pretty
It
cool
is.
stuff.
Yes.
So back to
Anyways,
the movie.
yes. Back to somewhere in time.
Yes. So another thing that I thought was cool was Arthur.
Yes.
Yeah. So he gets to the hotel. He meets this really, like, he probably shouldn't be working anymore. He's so old.
Yeah.
And, that's his bellboy, or the one that takes him to his room. And he meets him again when he goes back in time, and he's like 5. And he's so kind and wonderful to him, because he's like, oh, you told me the story of yourself, and there you are,
Mhm.
so that was really cool.
That was really
Um,
cool.
hmm
Yep.
There was something else I forgot already.
Yeah. Well, Arthur is like, I think he said at one point to Richard, he goes, "Have we met before?" Like there's like this inkling of like, and that happens a few times in the
Yeah.
movie where it's like, wait a minute, I feel like we've interacted, and there's like this like kind of knowing, but not quite sure.
Yeah.
Um,
Almost like a deja vu or something. Yeah.
mhm,
And he really liked him. So
mhm,
he really liked Christopher Reeve's character. He was like, he was such a good man, you know.
mhm,
That was one of
mhm,
the final things that he said. He's such a good man.
mhm,
So that was kind of, and it is very hokey, but there's a lot of good pieces in there. What else? Oh, he had to get everything around him had to be old to go back
mhm.
in time.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, creating it, I liken that piece of it where he basically has to really everything about his surroundings, everything in his mindset, everything he like records himself saying, "You are at this hotel back in I don't know what the date was,
1912.
1912, yeah, and you are going to meet these people, blah blah blah." And like he records himself saying this. Um which actually when I was watching it, I was like, it's a really great example of like creating your reality, but also like he was too forceful at first. He was
Yeah.
trying to force it, he was trying to pressure it, he was like there was too much force on it instead of allowing and leaning into it. So I thought that was actually really like very blatant example of like you can try your hardest at something, and if you're not allowing, it's not gonna happen. Like it's
Yeah.
you're gonna meet that wall.
We really cannot push our way into things anymore. That is a very 3D way to do something. And it
Mhm.
doesn't work in this reality. Like, we've moved beyond that. So when you see somebody doing that, you're almost like allergic. You're like, you
Yeah.
know, like, okay, I'm gonna go now.
Yep,
Yeah,
exactly.
because it's too icky. It doesn't feel right at all. Mm-mm.
It doesn't. And like, there were maybe stages of my life that worked for a certain period of time. You get used to or good at playing the 3D game and you kind of learn the tricks of it and blah blah blah, but
Mhm.
that's not the if you're raising your frequency and you're kind of moving with that doesn't fit anymore. That's a different it's a totally different plane that's on. So
Yeah,
yeah.
it doesn't work. It doesn't work
Mm-mm.
anymore. So
No.
did you notice the room number?
What was the room number?
117.
Uh I didn't even think of that.
Yeah, that was her room number. I was like, oh, there's
Interesting.
that little 17 getting in there.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Hmm
Yeah.
So that was cool. The play was probably the hardest thing for me to watch.
Yeah.
She was an actress. So we're
Mm.
totally ruining the movie for you guys, but
Yeah, we really are.
still go watch it. But she just like, you know, in the movie, they'd known each other for maybe 24 hours.
Yep.
And it was just like this huge, long monologue of love to him.
Uh-huh.
And he's in the audience and she's in a play acting. And I could have sworn he was going to stand up and say, "Oh, I love you." You know? And I was just like, oh, this is too much. This is too crazy.
I know. I was thinking about that and I was like, okay, if we're thinking about it in our like the way we experience time, this is such a short period of time.
Yeah.
But then I was thinking about how many times has this loop occurred?
Mm,
You know
yeah.
what I mean? And are there soul I just kind of went down a rabbit hole of thinking of this of like, and are their souls connected and have they been like journeying together for a while? So it's like this recognition of each other. So like the intensity is there. That's where my brain kind of went. But I was also like, this is really hard to watch.
I know. I know. That's where I was. But I do think they were connected.
Mhm.
So I think they were soulmates, you know. And you could see that by the decision that he made at the end, you know, the devastation. And it also shows you like you're going to get back together with your soul tribe, your soul friends, you know, whatever you want to call them. Like you're going to see them over and over and over again.
Mhm.
Even if you end up in different time periods, eventually you'll get right back together.
Mhm.
So I think
Yeah.
it takes away a little bit of the loneliness. I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like people just lately, I've heard from several that have said, you know, people are falling away. I can't, you know, like have deep conversations with people. And I'm like, well, you're making room for more
That's
right
exactly
now.
what was just going
Yeah.
through my head. Yep. Yep.
Mhm.
Letting go of that stuff. So then the ones that are able to meet you where you're at and you're able to meet them, those will have space to come in.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I'm in that space right now too. Like I'm joyously single. I don't want to have any animals in my life right now. You know, the friends that I have that I can connect with on certain levels are starting to kind of go to the side a little bit. The ones that I'm like living close to right now. And there's a part of me that's like grieving that and is like going through all the motions of that. And also I'm really excited for the room I'm in, the space I'm making.
Yeah.
Because I know like there's gonna be so much more coming in. So I'm holding both right now. I'm holding the kind of like emotions that go with kind of like maybe not saying goodbye forever. I think people can re-enter your life in different ways
Oh,
too.
yeah.
But, you know, just kind of grieving the consistency that I had before from certain people and being like, okay, that's no longer serving me in the direction I'm going and just allowing that. So for those of you feeling that, I am right there with you. I'm in the middle of that right now.
Yeah, it's definitely been a journey. I feel like this whole process has been about like waves of letting go of stuff and then learning something new and going letting go and learning and letting, and it's the process of change. It's like shedding skin, almost like, you know, a
Mhm.
snake.
Kind of,
Yeah,
yeah.
we're just letting go
Yeah.
of all the old stuff. And it's internal versus external. But,
Mhm.
you know, like an animal does in the summer, like they shed their winter coat and then they go through that cycle. And that's what we're doing, but it's emotional.
Mhm.
Yeah. Lifetimes of karma
Yes.
is being shed
Not
away.
even, it's not just this lifetime of emotions, it's many, many.
No, it's so many. It's all the way back to your very first lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, and that's crazy when you do that.
Yeah.
And you can get back there.
Yep.
And it's amazing to let go of something that started at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that's
Yeah.
usually soul wise, but the body too has like this lineage that goes back to the beginning of humanity, basically.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
A
it's
lot
really
there.
good.
Yep.
So, what else? Oh,
So, oh, go for it.
I was just going to bring up the protector guy, her.
Yes, that's
Oh,
exactly
yeah.
what I was gonna
Okay, you
say.
go
Yes.
for it. You go for it.
Well, I was mainly gonna bring him up because, and I didn't catch this the first time I watched this movie, but this time around, he he's an intuitive or a time traveler himself. Like something about him, like he
Mhm.
knows stuff. And I'm like, what is going on there? And what I kept getting, because there was another aspect of me too watching Richard, and I'm like, he's literally not thinking of how his actions are affecting anybody else. Like he has one thing on his mind. He just wants this one thing and he's just going for it. So that was his perspective. But then this protector guy, he has his own perspective and he's trying to insert himself over here. So for me, that was just a really good example of like everyone's doing what they think is best.
Yeah.
And from their perspective, they're doing what's absolute best for them. But depending on what angle you're looking at it, you can be like, that's so messed up. Like, what are you doing? So,
Yeah. Yeah. He was tied up in the horse barn or whatever.
right.
Yeah. So, and he thought he'd lost her forever and
Uh-huh.
all that, but she was still there.
Right.
And yeah, I think that guy was either a psychic or a traveler. Feels more like a traveler is what
Mm-hmm.
his role was supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
And he was very shifty.
Yeah.
Like the protector guy was very shifty.
Uh-huh.
And Richard or Christopher Reeves was extremely naive
Yeah.
and pushy.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
So,
pushy.
and she was definitely like had the mystique of what a woman was, the women's mystique that was going on in 1980. So that
Mm-hmm.
was in 1980. I'm pretty sure that came out.
Yep.
Yeah. And it had the music. So that's another thing. The music went all the way through the movie, this one song.
Yep. To tie it all
Um,
in. Yep.
yeah. So that
Yeah.
was a trip. And I think it also contributed to the frequency,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, of him getting back there.
For sure. For sure. Well, because yeah, he couldn't do it at first because I mean, the pressure part of it, but the frequency wasn't right. He wasn't matching that.
Mm-mm.
Um, it
Yeah.
was almost like he was over intellectualizing it and not feeling into it, which I think is another thing that was like has been super important for me in my whole remembering and journey of everything of like I can be curious, I can ask questions, I can read about things, I can research and know things, but ultimately to experience them, feeling it is really important.
Yeah.
At least for me it has been. So yeah, that was a good example in that movie of that, I think.
Well, and we have to get into our heart to really manifest because you have to feel it in your body. You have to almost become in the space that you're manifesting.
Mm-hmm.
So, you could say, oh, I'm manifesting a new bicycle, but the feeling that you get has to be the gratefulness and the excitement and all of those emotions that the bicycle brings you and the
Right.
adventures you're going to have on it and all that.
Yep. Yep.
So it really is kind of amazing how easily we can manifest now.
Mm-hmm.
Like manifestation is becoming so simple.
Yeah.
and
and
fast.
and I was gonna say, and a lot faster. I mean,
Yeah.
there's definitely certain things that I manifested years ago that I'm seeing now, but there's things that I manifested like a week ago or a day ago or whatever, and like I'm starting to see those come in. I'm like, whoa, whoa, that was fast.
Yeah. And that's fifth, dimensional stuff.
Mm.
And I honestly feel like we've passed that dimension at this point. We're beyond the fifth dimension. The mind hasn't totally caught up yet, but it will. But the body is beyond it. And density wise, we're moving through the fourth density positive. I don't know where we're going to end up. Like, we could end up in fifth density.
That'd be
Maybe
cool.
that would be really cool. If we end up I think that will take a while if
Yeah.
we do. And I'm trying not to predict anything anymore because it is
Yeah.
very hard to
Yep.
predict, because we're in this new, whole new paradigm that nobody's ever done before. So
Hmm.
no one has ever ascended inside of a body before,
Right. Yeah.
especially a human body that was very suppressed.
Hmm.
Most of the DNA was deactivated. So
Right.
it's just it's so good what's going on right now,
Hmm.
and very discombobulating as well.
Yes.
You're like, oh, I don't know what's going on today. What's happening today?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Our souls are like, I've ascended before, but this whole game is brand new. So
It
yeah.
is. Yeah. And the physical system is so different. So, like, when he chooses at the end of the movie, he sees something that sends him back to 1971, I think is what it was.
Hmm.
And he goes back, and he's just desolate at that point. So he just shuts down,
Hmm.
and then he dies because of it. Um, and then he goes and he's with her. And the death scene is very similar to what death actually looks like.
I was gonna say, and that is a part of the movie I didn't remember, and then rewatching it, I was like, oh, this is like my understanding of how this kind of goes,
It
which
looks
is really
so much
cool.
like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, that white place where they ended up in, that's where I was when I
Nice.
was 7 and in the middle of my near death experience. Like,
Yeah.
you're in that room and it's just all white, and you can't tell where any of the walls are or anything.
Hmm.
So, and there she was. There was his soulmate with her hand
Just
out,
waiting.
waiting for him. And honestly, that's kind of how it is. Like, I remember coming in, and this was a memory that was given to me recently, but coming in from source and making that decision, and I was with one other being. So I
Oh,
had a friend, me and my friend came in together, and
that's
we made our
cool.
choices and it was weird because it was basically and maybe my higher self was bringing it in so that I would understand it better. But it
Hmm.
was like being in kind of a very bright yellow spaceship. And on the side was the program where you programmed in what you wanted your life to look like.
Nice.
Yeah. So I was next to somebody else, and we just floated.
Yeah, yeah.
So we look like those people from Cocoon.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Only smoother faces. Like, we didn't have it was just a light body.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
So cool to have that memory.
It was really cool. And it just popped in one day when I was trying to be Zen.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's so valuable to take that time for yourself. Yeah.
Mhm.
And for a while, I've just been going, and not taking time. And now I'm taking more time, and it's really more downloads come in, more memories, you level up faster. Like
Yep.
taking time for yourself is really important.
That's what I'm experiencing too. Like even if my day is like I've kind of packed my day sometimes, but I make sure I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go for a walk, I'm gonna lay in the grass, I'm gonna listen to music while I'm like whatever, walking to the store, whatever happens to be. Like I'm doing something where I'm like reconnecting in and getting into that Zen mode again. But yeah, because literally, at least for me now, it's so much easier to get into that space where downloads are coming in. Like I could literally be in my car driving, and if I'm kind of in the right space, I'm breathing, whatever, I could be singing in my car, and all of a sudden I'm like bloop, 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 like just all so
Yeah.
yeah. But
It's
making sure I take that time, because if I don't, it's not like, well, it kind of almost feels like there's a backlog that's like waiting to get in sometimes.
yeah, and you feel kind of irritated a little bit. I
Hmm.
noticed that because you're not in touch with yourself that well. So it's really important. So
Yep.
don't structure your life so that you have no time for yourself. It's a bad idea.
No, no.
Yeah.
It's been a great learning for me to be more kind of like in flow with my day. Like, yes,
Mhm.
we scheduled this, video recording at a certain time of day. But if Honey were to have been like, can we push it a little bit? Or if I were to say whatever, like just going with that feels so
Yeah.
much better than just being like, it must be this. Like the regimented schedule, it doesn't feel like it's resonating with me like it once did.
No, it doesn't with me at all. And I think that's part of being free from the matrix and um not really, you can't even connect to it anymore. Like it doesn't
Yeah.
even make sense. And when you get pushed into it, like if somebody's really trying to pull you into it, like maybe a friend that you're going to go do something with, it feels so icky,
Yeah.
you're just like, no, I'm sorry, I can't go do that, you know.
Yep.
So
Yep.
it's really interesting.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Yep. The allowing of that space to just be what it is, which is like, I didn't realize I was doing this as intentionally out as I was for like years. Like once I started working for myself a couple years ago, I was like, oh, I can structure my day however I want now. As long as I get everything done,
Hmm.
it's fine. So I started purposely like carving out a chunk to start my day calm and like in flow and all that stuff. And then I don't start working on things until a little bit later in the day. Um, and I'd always have people being like, well, aren't you starting work at 8 a.m. or 9 a.m.? And I'm like, no. And they're like, well,
No.
what? Like the 9 to 5. What do you mean the 9 to 5? I'm like, no, I don't know.
No. And for me, it's like the end of the day. I don't want to do anything at the end of the day. And when people ask me to, I'm like, oh, I don't know, because we go to bed really early and um I just I'm like, no, I want to be quiet at that point.
Yep. Yep.
So it really is an individual thing. Um so I feel like we should ask the audience what movies they're interested in hearing about.
Yes.
It's been a lot of movies that I've been watching, not consistently because I just don't, but Troll is the last one that I watched, and that was recommended by somebody.
Haven't seen it yet.
Um,
I have to
I
watch
would watch it like you know, so don't watch movies for the acting anymore,
it.
is what
No.
I would say.
Yep.
Some of them are really quite bad, but
Hmm.
Troll was, I think, about the Titans.
That's right.
Yeah. So, because they're frozen in stone
Hmm.
and they're huge.
I'm gonna have to watch that one.
Yeah, and he was the last one left, and then he got frozen. So I would watch it. I mean, it just, when you go at it with a perspective of what in this movie am I going to learn about the real history, then it's more fun.
Yep.
It's way more
100%.
fun. And I
100%.
noticed the frequency is different now too. Like you don't get sucked in like you used to.
Mm,
You know how you used to just like totally get sucked in and you were in the world with them.
yep.
And now it's kind of like, oh, there's an interesting thing they just did,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't have to have a notebook, which I did for a while.
Yeah. Yeah.
I did with this movie because I really wanted to review it, but you still pick stuff up. You're not just totally mesmerized anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I think that frequency has changed.
I think so too. I think so
Yeah.
too.
So,
Yeah. I'm curious, Sarah, what movies should we watch next? Because there's so many. There's so many
yeah.
that are there that have messages beyond the surface level of what we think they are. So, and yeah, for as like kind of corny as this one was, we're not afraid of corny. So if you have another corny one,
Yeah. No, we're fine with corny, and we're just gonna try and do this once in a while. I'm not gonna promise like how long we'll do it, any of that kind of stuff. But I think doing these movie things is really helpful because it opens up the mind. And if you can find a movie that will explain something to you, like the multiverse or the moon, remember Moonfall? That
yeah.
was the first one that I took notes on. And
Mhm.
I seriously, like, my husband's like, what are you doing? Why are you taking notes? What is this? And I said, it's disclosure. He's like, oh, and then the acting was really bad. And, it was hard to watch in parts because it was so bad, but there was all this disclosure in it. So he sat through that movie with me. Well, I
Grumbling
took
maybe a
notes
little
and he
bit.
was probably like, oh, this movie's really bad. So,
Oh,
yeah.
it's
So it's just funny. And I don't think that was really Halle Berry either. It didn't look like her at all.
oh my gosh.
So it's just interesting what we're
Mhm.
going through right now. And we're seeing things too that are showing us how false everything's been.
Yep. I
Yeah.
think that's the biggest thing for me. Like, I could maybe hear the same information from someone telling me directly, like, hey, this is what it looks like to create your reality. This is what think about this. And then it not click. But if I see it acted out in a movie, it might all of a sudden click for me. And I'm like, oh, duh.
Yeah.
Like, so I think for me, this is why doing stuff like this with you is fun because it's connecting dots in different ways. It doesn't always have to be like, read this article, have someone tell you in a class, like this specific thing all the time. Like it can be, but it also can be from a movie or a song or something like that too.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, in any way that you can introduce things to I call it the mind. Like it's the mind, the human brain that has to start to adjust to our new reality, and anything that you can show yourself that will make things click, it's really helpful. Um,
so helpful.
yeah. And the downloads come more too. Like I watched that movie Troll, and then I got this download about the layers,
Yeah.
you know. And it was the layers of the fabric and how we just have built on top of all the old layers, and it's like this meshy,
Oh my
and I'm
God.
just like, wow. And my brain got it and understood it, like it came right in. And
It makes so much sense. Like if you're allowing your psyche to kind of catch up and like not be dismissive or forgetful or freaked out by something,
Yeah.
by seeing it in a movie in a less kind of stressful way or whatever. Then a download comes in, you're like, oh yeah, yep.
I know. You're like, oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's good. And it's the beautiful communication that's going on between your body and your soul,
hmm
which I love. So
It's so fun.
but
It's so
it's
fun.
fun. Yeah. This was really fun.
Yay! I'm so glad. It was great.
Yes, it was a lot of fun. And thank you, everybody. And let us know what you want to see us review, because I think that will be a lot of fun.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.